This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Teach Me Pokemon, the podcast. I'm your host, Cory, and along with my co-host, Jared, we're best friends, been playing Pokemon for a very long time.
All right, here we are. Oh, Jared, there's a ladybug on my desk. All right, we're here with the Teach Me Pokemon podcast. I am Jared with my co-host, Cory. Oh, wait, I'm just joking. No, swapping it around. I'm Cory, you're Jared. Jared, I'm on a remote location right now. You know where I am?
Oh, I do know where you are. It's not far from home for you, but I do know where you are.
It's not, and I'm actually... So, I'm in Austin, the capital of the great state of Texas, Austin, Texas. But you know what? Fun fact for everybody. You know who won the first ever, city championship here in Austin, Texas? Basically the equivalent of a League Cup. And he was running Tyranitar back in the day. And he might have been given a trophy for the win that I can't find anywhere. I don't know where it is.
It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
So it's when I come back to Austin, Jared, it's like a homecoming for me. I come into town, all the Pokemon trainers, they come out on I-35 with their cards and they fling them and he's back. He's back. I haven't had the same success here in Austin since then, but
sure,
I'll take it.
Dusknoir had no chance in the finals. It had no chance in the finals.
Dusknoir had no shot. I was just messing. I was playing with my food. That poor Dusknoir. It is funny to see full circle coming into this world, Jared, and I'll tell you a little something I was watching last night, but the Dusknoir will be back again. Now, I don't know how many years ago that was when the Austin City Championship that we're just talking about, but yeah, here he is, good old Dusknoir. So, but anyway, we're going to dive in. I have some topics I'd like to bring up, and then you have our educational moment, right?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to open with something real quick, if you're okay with that.
Oh,
I
sure.
just want you to fill in the blank because it seems like you just had a wild Pokemon sighting on your keyboard. So the ladybug Pokemon's name in Pokemon is...
Ladybug.
Yeah, Ladybug. That's good. You got, yeah, there we go.
Ladybug. Yeah. I got it. I know my Pokemon. I mean, Ladybug isn't really playable. Ladybug.
I think it's Ladybug. I don't know.
Ladybug? You don't know the pronunciation.
I looked it up. LedybA. Teach Me Pokemon is not the home for Pokemon pronunciation, but I figure we try to learn a little. I figure we see what we can do here. You said wild Pokemon are appearing on your keyboard. Let's talk about it a little bit.
So, okay, I'll tell you this story. I wasn't going to say this, but this reminds me. So I told you this on the phone, but my wife and I were driving up. We're on a road trip to College Station, so hour and a half drive. And my son, who's 22 months old, he was just chilling in the back in his little car seat, hands above his head, and he was reading a book. And so I'm driving, I can see him in the camera, in the car, and I'm like, what is he reading? And I didn't ask my wife what the book. He's just reading for 5-10 minutes, just arms behind his head, and he's turning the pages, and there's little things you can move on each page. And I finally asked my wife, I was like, what book is that? She's like, well, that's his Pokemon book. And I was like, no way. He has a Pokemon book? I didn't even know he had a Pokemon book. And so, but he's there and he's looking at it. He's very intently looking it over. So we get to where we're going. I get out of the car and then I start looking at the book and my wife's standing there next to me. And she's like, well, what's that one? Asking me. And there was one where I'm like, I don't know the name of that Pokemon. I didn't know. And she's like, what are you talking? You go to these tournaments. You don't know all the Pokemon? And I'm like, look, that's not how the game works, okay? You play certain meta decks or rogue decks. I don't know all the Pokemon. I admittedly, I don't. So, but maybe my son will next.
Did you ever figure out what it was?
No. It was a little electric thing. Chimichar. No,
Charbug?
Charbug.
Is that what
That's the one. I couldn't come with the name. I remembered it was Vicavolt. No, is it not Vicavolt? Is Vicavolt Vicavolt is the stage 2.
Yeah, he's the stage 2, but Charge-a-Bug is like
Charge-a-Bug.
the little green kind of squarely looking Grubbin, Charge-a-Bug,
Grubbin.
Vicavolt.
For whatever reason, Grubbin, I think I could have remembered Grubbin. You know, back in when like people were running the 2-1-2 line of Vicavolt into what were they running it into?
Was that item shut down back in the day?
No, it wasn't item. It was into the Leaf guy. I don't know. Now, see, we're trailing.
Missed that part of the meta. Missed that part of the meta.
Yeah, I played that. You didn't. Well, anyway, I want to start off by my, I'll call it a sub-educational moment based on what I was watching last night. Kudos to Azul. I feel like Azul is shifting in his career to content creator more so than competitive player. He's still competitive, right? Azul's still going to go to all the tournaments. He wants that world's title. He was so close last year. So he's not going anywhere. But, you know, Jared, when you hit the old age of 30, you have to really evaluate what you want in life. And so he's putting out great content. We normally don't promote other channels on here except for Stray Collections, our sponsor.
Gotta watch Stray Collections, man.
All about Stray Collections. But Azul has some good stuff. So I'm last night. I'm chilling in a hospital room. We don't have to get down to that rabbit hole. I'm okay. My dad's okay too. But and I just like, what's Azul talking about? And so he did a stream of a training session happening with Japanese players and Tord. Ooh. And they did a little like round robin, a little 6-person tournament, and super intriguing, Jared. What do you think Tord was running in this little? His first match was or he played Daiichi in one of these. Like these are like top level Japanese players and Tord. So what do you think Tord was running? I'll give you one.
Well, let me ask you this: was this like an exhibition game where you're not really trying to run your best stuff? You're just like you're going to run something that's competitive, but you're not kind of revealing your hand. Is that what we're kind of talking about here?
Yeah, I don't think this was Tord's fastball. I think this was probably a changeup here. He was trying, but they clearly were having fun with it too. The Japanese players, I think, were trying. And also to preference, they were using the new cards. So they were playing like Shrouded Fabled was out.
Oh, okay. So this was actual cards. This wasn't on live.
Yeah. So what do you think he was running?
Take me back to the Tord Charizard days, man. Like Charizard Pidgeot. Come on.
That's what people think he's going to run at Worlds. So he was not. He was on Gardevoir.
And a classic, a
oldie but a goodie. The second match he had on stream, he loses because 3 Curlias were prized. Ooh. And then the 4th one was in his hand, so he couldn't evolve it onto the anyway, classic Gardevoir. But my point being is like clearly Tord was like he needs to train just like anybody does. You know, your son and you go to your Wednesday night league in Murfreesboro. Tord, I assume this was in Japan. It could have been somewhere else, but maybe he flew to Tokyo and he, you know, that's where he trains. Like people, you have to find your group and your league and your training partners to do this. And so I just thought it was really cool content. There was the deck that I think is going to be the one that unquestionable best deck right now.
For World with the new stuff coming in?
Is that Regidrago. It can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. That addition of the Kyurem into the deck, because, you know, the Kyurem's move is like, what, 5 energy, right? Well, the Regidrago can copy it. So it doesn't matter if your opponent has a Chorus or not in their discard pile. Now this thing, it was just like against Tord, it was like the minute the Kyurem got in there, if the Manafi got cloned, that Kyurem kills everything on the board.
Yep.
And so it's with the addition of that card, it not weak to anything. Like, oh man, this guy on the Reggie. Game 1 was close with Tord. It was close, but Tord was never going to win. And then game 2 was a slaughter because he didn't have the Curlias. Like this Reggie Drago, it's it, Jared. What else is going to beat that deck? Like you tell me right now, what else is going to beat that deck?
Well, I think there's a question here, and we've seen this time at past times in the meta, where I guess my question to you is Dragon some version of Dragon, whether it's Reggie Drago or whether you favor like a Dragapult, is Dragon the primary pick going into Worlds because it doesn't have weakness? Because we've seen metas in the past where Pokemon have weakness, but maybe there's not a Pokemon out that can really deal adequate damage. Kind of like when Charizard first came out, there really wasn't an adequate Leaf Pokemon at the time to one-shot it. So I guess, I don't know if Reggie Drago can be stopped, but are we just looking at a Dragon-filled Worlds, I guess is my question back to you.
Yeah, that's the question. That 100%, yes. I mean, it's not weak, so you're right. There isn't a clear, I'm going to tech a Drapion in here for Mew, or I'm going to put in a Leaf counter to Charizard. That does not exist right now against Reggie Drago. There's not I'm just going to put this in here to get around it, because one, it's not weak, but two, you have all these different attacking options, which is what I've always enjoyed about certain decks where you can bring stuff back from the discard pile, the old Garchomp of the day, the Zoroark deck that just got rotated out, because you could just pick and choose what stage 1 you wanted to battle with depending on your matchup. That's what this guy does. So it's like if you want to snipe, you have the Dragon Bolt, right? If you want a one shot, you have Raging Bolt. They still put the Tina in there to hit the 280. Now this Kyurem that just snipes on every single thing 70 HP. Like it's the Gudra. If you're just going to go head up with something and now you're reducing damage by 80, it kind of does everything. And then, let's give it Legacy Star, a V-Star ability that lets you find 2 cards out of your discard pile and put them in your hand. Like what? Like it. I think this is gonna just be everywhere.
Wait, is that how that ability works? Are we saying that correctly?
Yes. Legacy Star
for
you discard 7. You discard 7 from your deck, and then you can pick any 2 cards, put back in your hand.
Is it from the 7 or
no, in your discard pile?
That's where I read that wrong.
They just get discarded, so now they're in the discard pile. So yeah, I mean, could you lose key stuff? Sure, but like it's like, well, I can pick it back. And in a deck that really doesn't need tons and tons of resources, like once you get to Reggie Drago set up, so you're good. Like you're good. So you have to be able to hit through. And this is where my counter deck. This is my counter deck. And people are going to be like, we're here, we're coming again. We're coming full circle. But you can't tell me this can't beat it. I think Lost Tina makes an appearance, Jared. It's coming back.
Wow.
It's coming back because it's V-Star. Star Requiem one-shots anything, right? So you want to Gudra me? Gudra. It doesn't matter. The 280 is exactly what you have to hit to kill the Reggie Drago. So, yes, there's going to be pressure with the Kyurem, and that is the risk. But I think a good Lost Tina player can still pad those choruses back in, right? But then I know in the Reggie Drago matchup, it doesn't matter. You still have your Manaphy. So they still have to navigate Prime Catcher and Canceling Cologne or something. But just be delicate. In Tina's, you don't have to go as wild with Comfies as you do in traditional, like the old Sablezard builds now, like the Blood Moon Greninja builds, So, I mean, what else? What else can beat Reggie Drago? I think it's Lost Tina. Lost Tina.
I think if you're talking about like a straight up blow for blow type of game, absolutely. If that thing gets going, I know it can still get in its way a little bit, but the things that I'm looking at that I think can potentially stand in its way are things that stall decks do, right? Like because Reggie Drago has an ability, you can get into that ability a little bit, throw out the new Ogre Pawn that says can't be hit by Pokemon that have abilities. I understand you can get around that a couple of times, right? By, being strategic with your canceling clones. But like, is stall an option here? I feel like there are some walls out there to get in this deck's way.
No.
Really?
Yeah. I just got promoted, or not promoted. You know how like in the US government, Jared, there's like your subcommittees.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So in the stall community, I'm the chair of the subcommittee of what decks counter stall hard. And it's Reggie Drago.
Why?
So it can just get around those things. So and it can pick and choose what attack it wants to do. I have seen some. This isn't. I don't know if Daiichi was doing this, but I've seen some put in a one of Tina, the V for the shred ability. 160. You're getting through all that stuff, right? Like what do you stick if you're stall here? Because you have the Ogre Pawns that can still attack.
Sure.
You have the Reggie Dragos, which if they put 2 down. Now, if you can spike like 3 of them with a flute, you can kind of pivot your way around. But when they can still retreat, still Prime Catcher, get the Prime Catcher out of the discard pile back in their hand, like there's just a lot of pivots that they can do, and then still snipe you for 200, drop 6 damage counters behind on the bench. So it just runs so many basic energy that has always been a tough part for any stall deck, is when there's just that many options and you can attack with basically anything in your deck, it becomes problematic. The squawkability is for sure a liability in that matchup. And if I'm the stall player, I'm gunning for that squawkability to try to just stick it in the active as many times as possible. And if you can Eerie or you can Sister the Prime Catcher, then you only have to worry about it one more time with the Legacy Star move. So I think you can find it in spots, but I just think I think it can pivot really well. I don't know. I'm still scared. I'm so scared of it.
It could be a Reggie Drago Worlds, and it's like you're saying. So like, when my natural inclination when I'm looking at a 2-prize deck, because there isn't, I think it runs Greninja in some variations of the build. I don't know if that's always the case, but it's not attacking with the Greninja. But no. my first mindset is, 2-prize deck. Let's change the prize map. Let's get some 1-prizers out there. But what you're saying and what I'm hearing is with that Kyurem, fine, switch to a 1-prize deck. I'll start taking 3 in one turn.
It'll do that. And against a stall deck, you have another strategy you could do as Reggie Drago is I would just snipe with the Kyurem and not get any knockouts. I would just spread 7 and do it so that you maximize the amount of knockouts in a turn before they can start counter catching you. Because that's when, I mean, that's always the not the elephant in the room, but that's what unlocks stall, is when you get to the counter catchers, right? But in those games where you're even, especially in the beginning, those are like weird games sometimes where you're like not sure what to do because your opponent hasn't gotten a knockout in a while. And you're like, well, now I've burned a lot of my supporters and I have all these counter catchers. So maybe you just Kyurem snipe and then you knock out everything in one turn. So I don't know. I don't know if stall's the way about it, Jared. I don't know. I'd be scared.
I think the key is going to be, like you said, the squawkability is a liability. I think this deck demands that you go after what's on the bench, and you're able to deal with that because you can't deal heads up with this machine, especially like you said, if they go Goodra V-Star, there's no point in going head on at it. It can snipe, it can spread damage counters, it can do so many different things. It's still, in my opinion, like any deck that needs to get to a stage 1 can have those bad starts, a la, Arceus, a la Lugia. It can have bad starts, but I think one of the best ways is to get a Klefki, some deck that has a Klefki out there earlier, some deck that can shut down early movement of this deck so that if you can't squawk, if you can't use your Teal Mask Ogre Pawn's ability, I'm at least going to slow you down. And
That's
I think
true.
that's going to be the key to this deck is early stops, because like you said, very similar to Raging Bolt. If this thing gets off and running, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, we don't charge for this podcast, right? Everybody gets to listen to us for free. So I'm gonna give you some free advice, everybody listening. Been running this Bennett Frostlast deck,
Here we go.
and I'm telling you, Jared, if you get that item lock on the Regidrago, it's a little frustrating for them. And you can get to a point where you can counter catcher and pull out one. They can't prime catcher, they can't energy switch, they can't cart. And that Frostlash just keeps on ticking on those ogre pawns. I don't know. I mean, there's been a few games. I probably have like a 35% win rate against Regidrago. It still wins more times than not. But there are times where it's just like, oh, this is just over for them because the damage is going to tick on everybody.
Absolutely.
But you put Kyram in, and that's not on live right now. And in the version of this Bennett item lock deck I have, I'm not running Manafi. So
gone. Bye, Frostlasses. Bye.
Yeah, not ideal. So
no,
might be short lived. But I don't know. Lost Tina.
Okay.
Lost Tina. That's it. Garrett, we'll do Worlds predictions in a couple weeks. I'm telegraphing mine already. I think unless I'll get in, I'll start testing. I'll start testing and see. But I'm telling you guys, it could be GG with Lost Tina. It probably deserves a win. It deserves a Worlds win. It was that tier of a deck.
At one point, absolutely. And it's constantly made comebacks.
Yeah. This is like the Dallas Mavericks making it to the finals. Like as a 5 seed, Luka Doncic is a Tina. It's like that is a all-star, all NBA, all Pokemon.
I agree.
Is Giratina. And,
I agree.
And Giratina deserves some love. So maybe it'll make it to the finals and lose.
I like it. I'll also say don't I think the key, if you're going heads up at Regidrago, like you said, is straight knockout. So don't sleep on Roaring Moon EX either. Maybe there's some interesting plays there too. You don't like it?
It's brutal. I tried it last night. I tried it. I tried it. It is hard. It is hard because you're just, yes, you'll get a knockout. You'll put 30 on yourself or 200 on, and it's just like the next Regidrago is just like it's just brutal. That thing was it had me the whole way. Like, because it's just okay, I'll 2-shot, and then it puts you to a point where if you do gouging frenzy, then you're just knocking yourself out because they've laid damage counters on you. Mm-hmm. Now the version I ran was this guy in Japan. It was like very speed version, so it didn't have any like any ability to give it more health with the berries and stuff. So maybe that's the pathway with Roaring Moon that could be super intriguing. That just was not my experience. So
I'm telling you right now, it's got to be. I'll go back to Klefki. This deck, like most decks right now, runs and fuels on its ability to speed up its energy production. That only happens in this deck through the Teal Mask Ogre Pawns. If you have something that can shut down abilities, if it can attack you, let's say it goes first and it just happens to have the correct energy, which again is varied, fire, leaf. That's enough time, in my opinion, that you should get odds up to win the game because it can't energy switch. It has to single attach every single time. So in my mind, if you're looking for like a hard counter, I think it has to come through ability lock.
Could a Miraidon deck with the Iron Thorns be viable? So only in those matchups where you elect your generator, you get the 3 energy on it, make it active. So now you shut off your abilities, mainly just like tandem unit, I guess. But now you're moving your electric onto other stuff. But now they can't do anything. They can't Legacy Star. They can't Teal Mask, Teal Dance. So they can't Squawk. Maybe it's a Miraidon deck.
Maybe it is, but or it could just be the Iron Thorns, right? Like
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it pairs well with Morena. I mean, Iron Thorns can be like in Lost Box too.
Yeah.
But again, but you're just the Chiron will just sweep the board. So I worry with a traditional Lost Box deck right now.
I agree. I think we will see a lot of Iron Thorns as a tech card at Worlds. That's a prediction that I'm going to make because it just does so much for you. Like it does so much for you. I don't think we'll see it as a primary attacker. Maybe we'll even see it in some type of really interesting hit and run deck, which I've always thought that are really fun if they can figure out a creative way to get it back.
Sure.
So I don't know. We'll see, but that's super interesting to hear about like this high caliber play pool that's going on. And of course they're just teasing it, but there's some nuggets there. There's something there.
There's something there. All right, Jared. And I know in this tournament, Mr. Tord, Mr. Recklev, he didn't have his fastball. I think he was not showing us everything. But I just don't think he's going to do well at Worlds. And that's not obviously Tord's the best. He's the best on the planet. But I think he's trying to make old things work. And I also think this is like a poor analogy, but you'll see where I'm going. This is like Jordan coming back in his 40s, thinking he could lead the Wizards because Jordan was that good. It's like, give me 4 other people. Now, did it help that Scottie Pippen was on like a low contract? Sure. But that's another topic for another podcast. I think Jordan thought he could lead the Wizards to the playoffs and a title, and he couldn't. He's too old. And I think Tord gets too creative sometimes. So I don't think the Dust Snore is going to work. It's a creative idea. We had one guy running it in this Japanese training tournament, but I don't see it. So I worry for Tord. I
don't know. Any meta where there is the ability to play strategically around what's on the board, I think he'll figure it out. I think there's been enough time. I know we're introducing a new set, but I was encouraged to see him running Dragapult with the Charizard at NAIC. And yes, I think sometimes he can get a little cute with it, but the decks that he shows up at Worlds with are creatively trimmed, I will say. He's not gonna lose efficiency trying to do stuff because this is it. Everything other than that, let's get a regional win under our belt, feel good about that season. That's a try hard effort. And then it's like I feel like I preach a sermon every week on the show. And then everybody tries to get a little creative. And they should. It's not that they shouldn't. But no one is running the best deck hardcore every single tournament.
I like that. How do we get creative trim to be like a term? Like you walk up and be like, hey, man, that was creatively trimmed.
That's creatively trimmed, man. I like that.
Creatively, man. Like it was creative, but you trimmed it. You trimmed it. I feel like I'm doing like a Trump. You trimmed it. You trimmed it. But I hope I'm wrong. I'm rooting for him.
I say top 16 min. Top 16 minimum. That's the floor. That's
no
the
cap.
Floor.
No cap. No cap.
Tord Recklev, top 16 minimum. You heard it here first.
I still I don't want our first matchup, Tord and I, to be at Worlds in the finals if he hasn't won one yet. The amount of pressure would be immense. I'm not stone cold like Vance Kelly is. I couldn't do that. So I need Tord to at least have one under his belt. Then I beat him. Then I get my title, and then we're Gucci. But if he hasn't won one yet, oh man, the fix would be in, especially if like Worlds was in Norway. It'd be like, no, the fix is in.
Oh, that's going to fit well into our educational moment here in a little bit. But what else is on your mind as we get closer and closer to Worlds?
I just think this mentality, and I told you this on the phone too. I think this is an interesting topic. Is you have this Alex Szymanski, right? He's not ever really. He's won for sure. He's a name,
absolutely
top tier player. We did have the United Wings deck that he stole from us at NAIC 2 years ago, which is fine, Alex. We good. We're fine. It's okay. No hard feelings. But Alex has been playing some Lorcana, and you mentioned Lorcana on the podcast. your brother plays. You've played in a tournament or two, and I do find it interesting that this 2-month layoff really between NAIC and Worlds of what it's done, and it actually hasn't had more players like making Pokemon content unless you're Azul. It's actually these players have dabbled in other games. Friends of the podcast, Aiden Koos trying his hand at other games. Raul Reddy playing in other games. Alex Lorcana. There's other players too that are out there and they're just playing in other card games. One, because they can pick them up quickly because, I mean, they're good players, right? They can pick them up. But two, it's interesting that they're like evaluating it. And Alex had an interesting tweet just about the level of players or how the maturity level of Lorcana versus like Pokemon. And he was like, Lorcana is like a bunch of 30-year-olds with money that are like, they're just seems more mature and they want to play. And it was a big regionals. I think it was like in Dallas, had like 2,000 players. And so do you see that as a good thing that players can dabble in other games, but then come back to Pokemon? Does that make them a better player? Or does that take their eye off the prize where it's like not like Azul that grinds every day, Tord that grinds every day? Do these guys start to get advantages because these other top tier players are playing other games?
Oh, that's a lot. I have a lot of hot takes on this.
That's what I'm seeing, Jared. That's what Pokemon has done when you give these players 2 months off. And a lot of these guys do this as a living. Like they're full-time Pokemon players. And when you don't give them something to go do competitively at like a high end, they're going to go find other things to go do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Give me your take. You think it's a good thing?
So I'm going to give this to you on a couple of different levels. I'm thinking from the competitive business side of how we view TCGs as a whole, right? We see that just for the first time ever, if you were to be a top tier competing player and a content maker, that you could make a good living, not just a living, but a good living. The top 3 or 4 people could probably do that because the Pokemon brand is the largest media brand, the highest grossing media brand, period. Like it has that global reach. Mm-hmm. So, but again, can everybody do that? If the top, how many people are going to make Worlds next year? How many did you say?
From the U.S. and Canada, 125 in the Masters.
125. Okay, and then same for Europe. Let's say all of Worlds. I don't know if this number is correct, but let's just say all of Worlds is 300. And let's say every single one of those people were to go start their own channel, do it religiously, work hard at it. How many people could really get to the top? Maybe the top 10%, maybe the top 5%. So
top 5% of what?
Of those 300 people.
Oh, like in the finished standings? What are you talking
right,
about?
Yeah, I'm saying our 300 best players in the world, they said we're going to become professional Pokemon players. We want to get paid doing this. And we've already said, like I said a minute ago, that's going to take not only playing in the tournaments and winning money, but some type of online presence where you're generating content. Right?
Yeah, but that's where I was confused on what you meant top 5%. Because like you could have...
I'm saying like, let's say of those 300, only the top 5% can do it to the level that they want to do. I don't think 300 people can make channels and play professionally and have a comfortable living in today's, world economy. So I'm saying I don't.
That's like 15 people.
Yeah, I'm saying the top 15 people can maybe make over $100,000 a year doing this.
Oh. Okay, I don't know.
Where we're standing right now today, July 31st. I don't think there's room for more than 15 people if you're just playing Pokemon. And that's why I'm about to make the point that I'm going to make. If you are branding yourself as just a TCG player, then you can start pulling from all of the different fields, assuming that you have the ability and the following to do so. Yeah, go play some Lorcana, draw in some people from that. Go play Magic, go play Yu-Gi-Oh, go play One Piece, go play all of these top tier games. Even Star Wars is getting a little bit of love right now. So no, I don't think in terms of if you're thinking about yourself as a brand, I think pulling from the TCG world in general could be better from you than from just being the Magic guy, just being the Yu-Gi-Oh guy. If you can do it all at a high level, why not brand yourself to something that's bigger, right? It's like if ESPN just said, oh, I'm just going to cover basketball. No, cover all the sports. You're going to get a wide, eclectic audience that may only tune in for parts of you, but they're still coming to you to see it all. That's my level of thinking about it as a business and a media. As a player, yes, I think Azul and Tord and the people that are just focusing on Pokemon are going to have the repetition advantage over these other players that are trying something else. Do I think there's a case to be made to say that you may learn something from another card game that you can bring into Pokemon? That's true too. But I'll always err on the side of, Michael Jordan showing up 3 hours before everybody to practice is going to have some percentage level advantage over the people that are doing something else and showing up a little bit later. So those are my two or three hot takes on what you have to say.
I had a good rebuttal before you said the ESPN analogy, because that's interesting, because people, have ESPN, but they would watch like a 2-hour basketball game. But then when there's soccer on, I'm not on ESPN anymore.
Right.
So that's interesting. I do think from these content creators, these Pokemon players, they have to build a following in order for the content to be monetized, right? And so I think their status as like high-end players earned them an audience. Some of them might have figured out some algorithm tricks and stayed consistent and, are engaging as you and I are. But for the most part, their content got started, or their audience got built because of their status in the game.
Sure, that's where it started.
Yeah, and so I fear that let's say you just started to be the TCG guy. What would be your pathway? Like, are you just going to Pokemon tournaments, Lorcana tournaments, Magic tournaments, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, One Piece tournaments? Are you even going to be that successful at any of them? Because you're not really, unless you just like have all the time in the world and can practice all of them and be good at all of them. But like, let's say there's 3 regionals on the same day for 3 different games. You have to pick one. And so I think you'd be left out in the cold. That's why I don't know if a bunch of games can get you to an audience.
Sure. I'm going to break your heart with what I'm about to say. I'm going
to break
your heart. But
don't do it.
But know it's true. It's true too.
No.
Where is the money for the Pokemon Corporation? Is it in players or collectors?
Competitive players going to tournaments.
So my personal view here is you only need to establish yourself in one game, have that foundational audience, and then branch into others. And it's a content play, not a competitive play. Maybe you show up to one tournament for each different type of something once, but you're not deserting your core audience. You're just becoming more of a buffet to be the TCG player. I don't think it makes sense at all with the level of returns and the quantity of players that we have for people who are looking to make a career out of TCG to be the serial tournament player. Unless that's just your jam, content is going to drive this more than anything else.
There are people that are like have a personality for it, and there are big content creators that do dabble in other games as kind of collectors and players and things like that. But like, I wholeheartedly disagree with your statement that like if you built a following in one game and then you start playing another one and these people are just going to watch you, that's not going to happen. Like, you have 20,000 subscribers that follow you because of Pokemon content. All of a sudden you drop a video about Lorcana. I don't know what kind of views you're going to get, because I wouldn't watch. I don't know that game, and I don't want to know that game. Now, you might get people that are curious, but they're not going to. Your audience will go, boop, and it's going to go down in the toilet.
But it's not about that. Like, you're making it this like super hard vertical thing, and it's about inviting people. It's not like you're treating it as like separate worlds. The person that can invite the average person to the TCG table, help them find their lane, regardless of what it is. That will be the person that will be able to monetize heavier than anything. And I think that person has a good chance coming from Pokemon because of the proliferation of Pokemon, but it could be somebody else. Like, it's easy to build yourself into a vertical and find success there, but there is a wider level of success to look at all of these sports stars that I'm good at this, and then I can tap into all these other things. Steph Curry, he could tap into the golf world. It's fine. We're not upset about that. We're still showing up to see Steph Curry shoot 3-pointers. But yeah, I'll go check him out. Steph Curry playing golf. It's got to be the right personality, and then they can bridge all of these games. That's where I think the most level of success is. We can't keep these verticals and say it has to be that or nothing.
Do you watch Steph Curry play golf?
Yes.
No, you don't. You turned into a golf tournament and watched Steph Curry play golf.
I'm aware of it. The golfers watching Steph Curry play golf, and we all love Steph Curry. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to just be the one thing. You're going to find primary success in one area. I get it. He's a basketball player. Tord is a Pokemon player. Azul is a Pokemon player. But you can't tell me that Tord can't pull more people in without losing. If he was like, hey, let's do a cool episode where we look at the similarities and differences between this new and upcoming game, Lorcana, and then maybe every once in a while make some content about it. Like, it's about fusion, not separation.
It's about fusion, not separation. It's about keeping it's about him making money. And he won't make any money anymore if he goes to another game. He could build it up, but if he's dabbling, he's not going to be able to monetize that channel as effectively as he would if it's just Pokemon. And that's his bread and butter, and that's his world. Unless you entered into this, like, I'm the TCG person, and that's where your following begins, then they know you as that. But you're not considered a competitive top-tier player in any game. You're just the person that attends these events. I've seen them. You go to the events, and there's this, I forget the guy's name, but that's so-and-so. And it's like, I don't know who that person is. And they're a content creator. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And then I kind of stand by their group, and the person's laughing because they're 3-4-2 in the regionals. And it's like, well, they're not a good player, but they're here because that's part of their channel as they go to these different tournaments. That's fine. If that's the world you want to be in, go for it. But that is not a top-tier competitive player in one game. I don't think you can do that and dabble in these other games at a high level. Which is the original question.
But
is that helping them be better at Pokemon? I don't know where we went on this road, but like, do these guys play Lorcana or One Piece help them at Worlds? Does that help them?
I think they're incrementally seeing different things that will be helpful, but not as helpful as someone who's staying on the grind. I just like the research says, I'm looking at The Tipping Point up here by Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell's research suggests get your hours in. And that's where the tipping point happens, right?
Get your 10,000 hours
Get your 10,000 hours in, and that's where the tipping point is, right? Like, so no, but you can't also say that, like, looking at different things that people don't draw inspiration from different things. I was listening to some content last night. Your favorite sports person in the world. Did you know that Kobe Bryant had a Navy SEAL on staff? A Navy SEAL to keep him mentally tough. Kobe Bryant's not in the Army. He shouldn't be doing that at all, Corey. He shouldn't be doing that. No, it was helpful to him. It was helpful to his mental game.
Maybe if he didn't have a Navy SEAL, he would have had a better shooting percentage as an NBA player, and he wouldn't have been like, hey, he's one of the top 10 role players of all time. I will not take that away from Kobe, but to be a guy that can lead a team, maybe he need to get rid of the Navy SEAL and focus on being a better basketball player.
Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about to kind of counteract my point. So like I said, I personally believe grinders at Pokemon will yield more, but here's an example. Lorcana, in the game state that it exists in right now, there are not a lot of, one, great draw cards, or two, the biggest thing that Lorcana does not have is any type of search your deck card to find anything specific. Though don't dicks. You're playing very, very situational cards. It's this very situational card game. Not that Pokemon isn't. Pokemon gives you more options. So what I think you could be learning if you're a Pokemon player playing Lorcana is more situational awareness with what's going on. Because what I think Lorcana players are doing better and could see better in Pokemon is the options of what is, not the options of what could come. So I think there's many times that I'm sitting in here and I miss, oh, that one little attack would have been the right move, or, oh, I forgot this little bit power. Playing Lorcana, you know what all your options are. You don't have very many, and you've got to make the right call to hope to get your odds better from what you're drawing from the deck. So I do think there's advantages to playing other card games and bringing those mentalities to Pokemon. But at the end of the day, yes, the person who's deep into Pokemon every single day, I think that's better.
Yeah. I as if I'm sitting across the table from them and I'm talking them up, where are you from? How long you been playing? And they say, well, yeah, I've been playing a few years. I enjoy Pokemon, but I was at this Lorcana tournament last weekend. I'm so happy if they say that, because I know they spent time. And we all have the same amount of time, Jared. You have the same time. I have it. Elon Musk has it. We all have the same time. We can't create more time. They wasted time on another game. Love it. I have an advantage now.
Whatever.
Perfect.
Here's
Love
what
it.
I'm doing. I'm bringing my Lorcana mat, because you really think less of me when I roll up at the tournament, put my beast mat up, and you're like, oh,
I
cake.
do.
And then I run you, and I run you, and I run you. And then you have to go back to your little friend group afterwards and say, I got beat by a Lorcana scrub. Like, that's the dream for me, when really all the time, I was just a sheep's in wolf clothing, baby. Or a wolf in sheep's clothing. I had it backwards. That would be really weird.
Well,
but I think there is advantages to learning from other games.
And that's totally the feeling you'll have at table 1,502 in round 7. So I'm so happy for you. Kudos. Good job. The man wearing dresses Pikachu.
See me at table
lost.
1 with my Winnie the Pooh mat and my Daisy Duck card sleeves, I don't know what I'm running in this case. Probably a speed deck at table 1. And I'm just gonna you'll be there. I'll just shoot you a little wink. I'm gonna tell you straight up, Pokemon the fix would be in to make sure you do not make it to table 1 at a Pokemon tournament with a mat with Mickey Mouse on it. The fix would, I'm sorry, even if you're a great player, you're all of a sudden, we need a deck check on this guy. Didn't he just draw 10 cards off that research? Nope.
Automatically DQ'd and banned from Pokemon. Well, anyway, that I think that is those are my educational moments, and maybe that's enough for today. I think I just find it interesting when you give these players this kind of layoff. This is what they ended up doing. Like, this is what happened. And is that a good thing or a bad thing long term? I don't know. And then now you're heading into next season, or the current season we're in, however you want to say it, where it is. I think players are going to think they have less of a chance to make it to Worlds, which they do. I mean, the field that will basically be cut in half or more than what made it this year from U.S. Canada to who will make it next year. And there might be players that think, I just don't have it. And I played Lorcana during this break. I'm going to go to Worlds, do my thing, but then maybe next season they do move to another game. And so, I don't know, interesting effect of the decision of having this big layoff. So
I feel you. Do you want a quick Jared education moment, or do
let's
want me to
go.
throw that up?
No, give it to us. Give it to us.
All right. This is you spoke earlier in the podcast about like running into this deck, this Reggie Drago deck that just it's a bully right now.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked a lot about this topic over the years. They talk about this on stream time to time. But there's a once great song, Corey Dickman, that says, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them.
Uh-huh.
And that game too starts with the letter Poke, but doesn't end with Amon. But I think the principle applies, and we have to talk about this, you and I, because you are the extreme on one side of this argument, and I am the extreme to a fault on the other side of this argument.
Oh.
Part of that is the deck style we play.
Sure.
But I want to talk about, I don't like the term quitting, but that's what I want to talk about. Like, when is it appropriate to concede a game, to forfeit a game, to get at what you're ultimately after? When is it not good to quit a game? So I'll start. I actually want you to be a part of this education moment, because I'm going to talk to you based on my experience about when it's not good to quit a game.
Okay.
And because usually I don't know the answer to that question. And I feel like you're the person that will hang in a game till kingdom come, maybe when it's not healthy for you. But I want to start with saying this is I never think it's good to quit a game emotionally. Quitting a game should always be to your strategic advantage, and quitting can be to your strategic advantage because of the format that we live in. Now, Cory, is it ever good to quit in a best of one series?
I mean, you're not going to win. Like there's not a win condition on the board anymore.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking at League. Should you ever just look at your opening hand and FF?
Well, okay, at League, probably never do that. At a regionals, I think there is a mindset of they're long tournaments.
I'm still talking best of one.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
At a best of one, at a long tournament, that used to be best of one at like city or state championships and regionals back a long time ago, and even these Japanese style. And is there could be an argument to be made where it's like, look, I can win the next match. Like basically, let's say you have to win one of the next two. That's the scenario here, and you're up against something that's a stall. Usually it's stall, and you're just like, man, I have a bad play into this. This is going to be a grind of a game. I can feel a headache coming on. I'm a little hungry. I want to put all my eggs in the next match, my winning in. Doing this is not worth it. That's maybe a scenario where I would say you could quit, where you could just say, flip the cards over. No, I good game. I'm going to go grab food to make sure I'm ready for the next match. If you are mentally not in a state, you got to take a break. That'd be my only way I would say to do that.
Okay. I agree. I don't think there's any situation. I think playing it out and still playing to the minute outs that you may have teaches you something. So I think if you're
100%.
trying to get better, I'm not saying like, you pass your turn and they're going to, they have a Pokemon that's going to knock you out. I think it's okay to concede at your turn, but don't concede the turn before. Like, take the reps. And I'm terrible about this. You and I'll play online. I'll make a misplay first turn. Oh, GG. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah,
let's go to the next one.
It's like, dude, I didn't have anything in my hands. Like, will you just quit? Like, yeah, I will. I mean, until there's like purely checkmate on board where you're like, there's nothing I can do here. If there's a sliver of hope, keep playing. Like, your opponent, you have to have the mindset, and this is where it's probably more arrogant sometimes. That's the line I cross. But you're just like, I'm better than this other player. They are going to make a boo-boo. And if I just get the right out here, I can keep going. And I can't tell you how many times those end up being victories. And, more times than not, you're probably going to lose because the board state, usually in those situations where you want to quit, are probably when it's not looking very good for you. But I keep going. I mean, until literally there's like not a winnable condition on the board, keep going, because you are going to see situations. That's when we talked with Raul, right? It's like practicing these situational moments. You'll get those in these games where you're down 5-2 in prizes. This is the board. This is what you have. This is what they have. Those are real moments that you're going to learn from that will play into the next round potentially. So yeah, there is no way, as long as the time is on your side, that all these factors play into, Jared, like best of threes and all this stuff about learning when to quit the game is a skill set. But if it's a matter of like, oh, I'm just frustrated, don't, just suck it up. Just suck it up and keep playing, because you're getting valuable. What's the guy? Malcolm Gladwell. Like, you're getting your 10,000 hours in right there by playing that out.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about maybe strategically leaving an entire match just to get yourself right, depending on the position that you're in. I think that's really wise. But I want to talk about what most of us are more familiar with as we watch streams and as we're thinking through a best of 3 regional. I can't tell you, and you're probably the same way, how many times we have watched a stream to see a quality player overuse their clock when they need to hang it up and play for the draw, or potentially, if things go really well in a game 2, get to that game 3, maybe there's a gentleman's agreement, maybe they can eke out a win. But because in my mindset, your mentality can be a double-edged sword used against you because you're so confident in yourself that you can eke out that game 1 win.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it is brutal. I do think I do a good job. Like I probably quit too quickly in game 1s, or in a game 2 where I know like this isn't going to happen. Let's move to game 3. It's usually in matchups where I know I have the advantage. So it's like I'm going to go first. Like let me go first, and I have a better shot to win that match than I do, or that game, than I do the one that I'm currently behind in. Could it be an epic comeback? Like sure, but I think the odds say choose to go first or second, whatever your preference is, you get that decision. So that's why winning game 1 is just so valuable across the board. Not the fact that it's just a win, but it controls the pacing of the match at that point. And so, yeah, I probably quit too quickly in game 2 sometimes. But I think it also like does this thing to your opponent where they're like, oh, geez, like there's an air of confidence. The fact that you just quit that quickly usually tells them like that you know something they don't, and there's less cards you can reveal in that way, things like that that I think play into it too. It's a part of the psychological game.
So let's talk like if you had to choose, as we're kind of educating people. Let's say obviously if you're down 0-1, never quit game 2. Like
no,
unless, like you said, unless there's a checkmate scenario. Give us some like rules of thumb for a game 1. Why should you quit, forfeit, hand over a game 1, in your opinion?
I think they're like the old. I think Drapion always provided a nice example of this. Is like if you had that tech card in your deck and you were playing against Mew, but it wasn't looking like you were going to win. Like, you were kind of stacked, but you thought, well, if I show the Drapion, I can get back in the match, but you probably still are going to lose. I would just quit. Like, I think revealing less cards to your opponent, especially like in this A-spec era too, if you didn't play your A-spec and they don't know what you're running, that would be the only way I'd probably like, well, I'm going to quit game 1. Let me get into game 2. You can choose to go first or second. That you lose control in game 3, which is unfortunate, but I think that gives you at least a shot at winning game 3 versus burning 30 minutes of game 1. You still lose. Now you've showed all your counter cards. And I think if you're that far behind, I would rather quit it and go to the next game than trying to climb all the way back. It typically, if you have a bunch of counter cards to that deck, if you know you have the advantage, it was just a bad start, go to game 2.
So what I hear you saying then is that a big part of game 1 mentality for quit or continue is information gathering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. 100%. Take a look at your opponent's discard again, or their discard pile again. Like, get them to do as much as they can. Sometimes I'll just go one more turn just to see what they do, knowing that I'm going to quit the next turn.
Yeah.
But like, well, just one more card. They have 3 Ionos or 4. Do they run a Roxanne? What is their A-spec like? And if they're a good player, they're probably not going to reveal much either. They might just attack you and then going back to your turn. But yeah, I think that would be scenarios where you can quit, but the epic comeback just feels so good. Like it just feels so good where you can just stick it to them.
So what is that? So I guess that's the thing I'm trying to hone in on here is for us as growing players, like what is that distinctive factor that you're looking for in a game that gives you reason to continue and to use your clock or to stop? Is it matchup? Is it like what you're up against, who your opponent is? What signs should we look for to say like nope, this is going to eat up a lot of time, but I'm gonna see this one out.
I think if you're in a favorable matchup and you just had a bad start in game one, quit, because you just need more games. That was just unfortunate. Get into another game. So I think that's scenario one. Know that, are you favorable here? If you're favorable, get into another game as quick as you can. So that's what I would do. If it's a deck that doesn't have a lot of counters, I'll use an example like this Frostlass Bennett deck, which is kind of a weird, quirky deck. But it can fall behind. Like, it usually always falls behind. And there's not a lot of counter cards. There's a couple counter catchers. The A spec it's a Aroma, so you're just finding more Frostlasses or Bennetts. But that's a type of deck where I would probably stick it out, because the mentality of the deck is this falls behind, let it do its thing to get caught up, because I'm not really revealing much. They know what I'm trying to do. But I think it puts your opponent in positions where they can misplay. And I think that's where that's where you can come from behind and catch up and win that match, because the deck is kind of designed to do that. So that's where the tough calls come into play, is if you're running decks that fall behind, you have to give it a minute to try to catch back up. But there are times where it's like what you're up against, it isn't going to be something favorable. Like, try to get the come from behind win, or then just go to game two and hope they have a bad start or something. But I think those have to be the indicators. If you have 2 or 3 counter cards to the deck you're playing against, I would not reveal those if you feel like you're in a losing situation.
Well, the other thing I'm hearing you saying, and this gives me thought too, is like knowing your deck and what, based off of last week's education moment, your style. If I'm Ancient Box, if I'm Future Box, and I'm running into something that I know is a late game deck, and I'm already getting my butt kicked, to me, that's a let's wrap this up. Because my win condition is in the first 2 to 4 turns.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not there, it's probably not going to be there.
Yeah. Now, if you run Roxanne, or, if you have a comeback mechanism, that's where it's like, I want to still play that. And if you get out of it, if it's just unlucky, Roxanne to 2, Iono down to 1, and you just get lucky and top deck the boss, well, then so be it. I had to see for myself.
Right. You had to see it.
I had to see it. So, but there is a mentality, like in these longer tournaments, as silly as this sounds, if I quit or I give up, like, I let you win. And I almost get into break thinking I was in control. I even was in so much control, I let them win. Versus you lose the match, you lost. Like, they took it from you. And that could be more demoralizing sometimes. So sometimes it's just what kind of edge do you need mentally versus, like, the old adage, did they win or did you lose? Right? That's the big thing in sports, right? It's like, no, we lost that game. They didn't win. The Boston Celtics did not win the championship this year, Jared. The rest of the NBA lost. That's what happened. They got lucky. So they did not win the title. The Mavericks, everybody else lost the title this year.
And and the Celtics don't care. They could give a crap less.
Well, I don't know. You get Tatum, he not playing in the Olympics. You get Brown, he gets snubbed. It's just not that good of a team in reality. But they had a lot of injuries. They got to the finals, and it's just what it is.
Oh, so, the sports can't help but creep back in.
So if you quit and you concede, when you play live, Jared, when you're losing on Pokemon Live, there's 3 things you can do. Okay? You let your opponent win, move on to the next game. You quickly concede and then move on to the next game. Or you just close the app. What are you? Which one are you? You tell me.
I'm always a conceder. Like,
concede.
I'm always, because my mindset is like, I'm not gonna let you get the satisfaction of knocking out that last Pokemon. Like, I quit. You didn't win. You didn't knock out all the Pokemon. And I know that's childish and stupid, but sometimes there's matches that you're more involved in than others that come down to the last thing. And it's like you said, oh, freaking idiot. I owned you to 1 and you found a Switch. Like, you're trash.
You're trash.
Unlucky. And you get so mad. But the biggest thing that I'm trying to educate Elijah on is, like, one thing can't be the determiner. One misplay, that brings you down. Keep going.
Yeah.
keep going. No emotional quits. I think strategic forfeiting, quitting, whatever you want to call it, is a skill that has to be learned as you get better and better. And that's why I want to talk about it. Because I think every player, the best of the best pros versus the newbies, have to become better at their situational awareness, understanding the entirety of the game, not just what's on the board, so that they can squeak out some, right? Because we're talking about like getting incrementally better. The best players know when to quit. They're incrementally better, and that makes the world of difference.
Yeah. Your goal is to win the tournament, whatever it is. Challenge, Cup, regionals, NAIC, Worlds, a league night to go 3-0. Like, the goal is to win the tournament, not to like necessarily win that game that you're in. And so keep the bigger picture in mind. That's what you're there for.
That's good. So. I love it. That's going to wrap us up this week. Next week, we are in the month of Worlds. We are ever closer. So excited to be able to get to this part of the year. Hawaii is going to be a wonderful hosting place. It's always a fun place to have a Worlds. Gotta love Pikachu with a ukulele. We're very excited about it.
Yeah.
So be tuning in next week as we dive more in, as we get closer and closer. Updates on the set next week. Just remember, give us a like. We are close to being at 1,000 subs, which is a really, really cool thing for us. We're continuing to grow plans. Just to let you in, my studio will be changing in the next couple of months.
We're
making things look nicer, and some updates to our technology coming as well. Very excited about that.
We're getting big time. We're joining Amazon Prime, picking us up. We'll talk about that next week.
Oh man!
All right, Cory. Yeah, Jared. All the people. Us. Are you saying it or am I going to say it?
We'll catch you later.
You can find us at roguemedianetwork.com. Teach Me Pokemon Podcast. Come and dive with us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.